Kind Voice Radio.
And welcome to Kind Voice Radio. I'm your host, David Levins. And, you know, there's so many kind voices we find in books. And in fact, one of the kind voices from a book is an inspiration for what we do at a Kind Voice Radio. So today, I'm delighted to have on Kari Riedel of Bookopolis, the founder and the mayor of Bookopolis, because she introduces children to books and helps children connect over books and exposes them to all these kind voices we find in books. So, Kari, welcome to the program.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
I'm delighted to have you because I think what you're doing is spectacular. Can you tell the folks what Bookopolis is?
Sure. Bookopolis is an online community for kid readers. And when we say kid readers, we're really looking at kids about age 7 to 13. So kids, when they're over 13, there's lots of social media and online things that they can do and they want to participate in. But what I found was that for the younger kids, the elementary and middle school kids, they wanted a place to share what they were reading and talk about books, but there wasn't a safe place for kids like that. So Bookopolis works kind of like Goodreads for kids, if people are familiar with Goodreads, which is really geared for adults. And it's a way for kids to have a social network where they can share books they've read and want to read and share book reviews and even do book reports and reading logs and school type of things, as well as recommend books to their friends and find new books that they actually want to read.
It is such a well-thought-out site, and I believe it says kids certified. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so for kids under 13, there's lots of laws protecting them under what's called COPPA, so Child Online Privacy Protection Act, which is great for our kids. But sites that, obviously kids are going to go online and are going to play games and do things online. So we wanted to make sure our site was certified with all the things in mind to keep kids safe. And so we actually use a third-party group called Kids Safe that has gone through our site and made sure that we're kid appropriate. And so some of those things are a kid can't make an account for themselves without approval of either a teacher or a parent. If kids want to be friends on our site and actually recommend books to each other and see the books they're reading, that friend has to be approved by either the parent or teacher. And we get about 1,500 reviews a day from kids, and we moderate all those reviews humanly before they get shared with the world. And so all of those things are what we do to make sure that this is a safe environment for kids, because obviously we don't want them coming across things that are inappropriate in this.
And I think that's great because, you have such a wonderful mission, but before the mission, you got to make sure you're creating a safe place.
Yeah.
Now, how did you guys come up with the idea for this mission?
Yeah, so it really came out of my own experience with my own kids. So I have two boys who are now in 7th grade and 4th grade. But a couple of years ago when I came up with this, my older one in particular was a big reader because he loved Harry Potter. So he was one of those kids that was reading through all the Harry Potter books, and you couldn't stop him from reading. And so when at school, often kids are supposed to read 20 or 30 minutes a night. And I would hear from friends that was a real battle in their house. And for us, I was like, oh, that's no problem. My kid wants to read for hours because he had a book he was really excited about. And then he finished the Harry Potter series, and he kind of got stuck, and he didn't know what to read. And I would suggest lots of things to him as his mom, who loved reading. And even then, before starting Bookopolis, I was always an avid reader of kids' books, and I would recommend things to him. And so in particular, one day I said, oh, Gabe, you should read this series called Percy Jackson that I had heard of. And of course, he said, no, that wasn't of interest to him. And a couple days later, his best friend said, hey, Gabe, I just read this series. It's called Percy Jackson. And then, of course, he came home excited about it, wanted to read it, and wanted me to take him to the library right away, not even realizing that I had recommended the same thing to him. But I saw in that little example that this power of peer, the kids, he would also come home talking about Minecraft and Clash of Clans and videos I had never heard. I certainly wasn't the one telling him about those. And so they talk to each other, but they're also 8 and 9 years old. And so actually remembering what was that book that Leo told me to read is a little bit, that was a challenge. So that was the initial idea was, okay, realizing kids, obviously, just like we do, I go to Yelp, I go to Facebook, I go to Goodreads, I go to these things to find the books based on the people I trust, my friends. And I didn't see much out there for kids in the same way to really get excited about reading for fun. So that was the impetus behind it, was creating a social network for kid readers that was really designed for them. So in terms of how it looked, how it felt, we wanted kids to be the main audience rather than be the parents or the teachers be the main audience.
And it's such a fun, well put together site. I'd like to kind of walk through the site a little bit, if that's okay. When you go to the home page, there's a search engine, so you could put in your favorite book. And let's say I put in Racing in the Rain by Garth Stein.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then I go to a page. It has Racing in the Rain, My Life as a Dog, telling Enzo's wonderful story. And on that page, there's interest by grade level. There's reviews. So if I click on the reviews, okay, now most of the reviews I find are short. Is that by intention or just kids tend to write less?
Yeah, we get a mix. So we're actually, Bookopolis is now mostly used by classrooms. And so we find the more and more that teachers use it as a teaching tool, then the reviews get longer, when they're really being used as a way for kids as a substitute for book reports almost. So if you scroll down in Racing in the Rain, you can see some of the ones that were probably school projects. But yeah, kids definitely tend to write shorter ones. I do school visits and I talk to kids about writing a quality review and what is the value of saying cool with 12 exclamation points. And that if you and I know each other, and David, we have the same taste, then you telling me cool with 12 exclamation points might have some power because I already have some trust built in you. But if I don't know you, I don't know what cool means. So if you wrote a review that actually told me a little bit about the book and why you recommend it and who else it's good for, maybe it's kids who love animal stories or stories that are funny or sad, then that's even more powerful. So it's fun to see how kids react to that because they want their voice to be heard. There's actually a lot of educational research that shows kids writing for an authentic audience of their peers is a more powerful form of helping kids learn to write than when they're just writing for a teacher. So kids actually write better when they know they're writing for a group of peers. And so this has become a powerful way for teachers to say, hey, write this review that's going to be read by hundreds of thousands of other kids and think about the value that you're going to have with your writing. So that's been fun to see the reviews kind of grow in that way and have that power too.
So one of the key aspects of your mission is building community around books, but having the kids build the community.
Right. Kid choice and kid voice is a big part of my mission. So there's a lot of research that shows kids, so 90% of kids say they would finish a book they picked for themselves. And yet, at the same time, there's research that says 73% of kids say, I would read more if I could find more books I like. So we see this sort of, it almost seems conflicting, but it goes together that kids want to feel empowered and are more likely to read a book that they find themselves, yet they struggle to find books. But the number one place they go and the number one source they listen to are their friends. So, all of those sort of research pieces, help me design and really think about, okay, we want Bookopolis, as you just said, to be a community for kids to be able to share with people they trust, their friends, and have a voice and help other kids actually find those books because we know they'll read more if they like the book that they are reading. Obviously, that makes sense. But if they feel empowered that they found it rather than someone forcing them to read it, they're much more likely. So if I went right now and told my kid, you have to read this book, Racing in the Rain, it would be very unlikely they'd be excited about it. But if they came and saw the reviews or they, talked to another friend who then they would want to go check it out, at least, take it to the next step and go see it at the library and see if it was worth reading for them.
Now how does your site encourage kids to interact with each other over books?
Yeah, so when they log in, they can see their friends' bookshelves. And again, most of our use is through classrooms. So when I first created the site, obviously I'm a mom and thought about this. I have a background in business and nonprofit work, not as an educator, although I've done a lot of work and volunteering in my children's schools. And so I initially launched this as a parent, thinking, hey, other parents struggle with the same thing. What should my kids read? And so I sent it out to a couple hundred friends and got very little pickup. And I was really kind of bummed. Like, I thought I had this good idea here. Why is this not happening? And realized it was kind of the same thing where when I told my kid to read Percy Jackson, he didn't care. But when his friend told him, he cared. If, your mom told you to go on this educational website about books, it didn't seem that interesting. But I started talking with teachers in our community and saying, look at this thing I put together. What do you think? And they were like, oh, this actually, and they started coming up with, okay, it ties into, I need to teach opinion writing, and persuasive writing as a cornerstone of most state standards for writing for elementary and middle school. Book reviews are a great way to teach opinion writing. And if you could add a reading log, and if you could add a way for me to sign in and create accounts for my students. And, so we were getting all this feedback from teachers, and suddenly those same kids who I had sent the site to their mom, they were doing it in their classroom at school and coming home telling their parents about it and saying, I have to go to the library to get more books so I can get more points in Bookopolis. So a couple of the things that we do, and I say all the education background because, again, most of our users are coming in as a class. And so when you come in as a class, you're automatically friends, Bookopolis friends with all your classmates. And then you can see each other's bookshelves. So you create virtual bookshelves of what you've read or want to read or reading right now. And you can also earn points and badges. And you can see your friends' points and badges. So you can earn points every time you add a book to your shelf, or every time you write a review, or if you write a book report, or if you recommend a book to a friend. So all those aspects, again, are just adding to this sense of reading equals fun is kind of the ultimate. And how do we, make this feel like something interesting, not just I've got to go write this boring old book report, but I can write a review that's going to then be seen by many other kids and have some value to them. And I earned a few points, and I got a badge that said I'm a rookie bookie. And, there's sort of that energy and excitement around that. And the kids' favorite part is to recommend books to each other, and then they show up on a special shelf that says recommended to me. And to me, that's the fun when you see kids get excited about that, then it really is like a book is a gift, and a book recommendation is a gift and something worth getting excited about. So those are some of the ways right now kids can use it. We're working on a feature where they can actually discuss books. So this is something kids have been asking for a while, and there's just there's more. We were talking about the child safety things. There's more involvement on that to make sure how can we make sure they're talking about books and talking about appropriate things. So that's been some of the challenge to adding a discussion feature, but that's something kids ask for all the time.
Very cool and very well thought out. Now, do kids from different classrooms, like from different parts of the country who don't know each other, do they become friends and build community as well?
Yeah, so we've had a few of those where the teachers have asked me, can we connect to other teachers? And so then their classes will become friends, and they'll be able to share book recommendations. So that's another thing we're working on. How can we facilitate that even more? We see it across in a given school as well, where maybe a librarian will set up an entire fifth grade, and then all those fifth graders can swap book recommendations and see each other's books on their shelves and build community that way. And I've also seen where teachers will actually, even though this is obviously an online tool, there is a lot of power of physically seeing, a book review, like when you go into an indie bookstore or into the library and you see reviews people have written. So some teachers will print out their students' reviews and fill their classroom library with them, which I think is a great way, again, to call attention to the books and build that sense of we're a community of readers in this classroom.
How beautiful. We need to pause for our first break, so we'll be right back after this.
The alchemy of kindness is one that we believe. When we reach out to each other, we both receive.
Hi, I'm Bruce Grammel, one of the original hosts on A Kind Voice Radio. My song, The Alchemy of Kindness, is about the good things that happen when kind voices come together. What you're about to hear is a message from Claire Bloom, who is using her kind voice to feed hungry children. We hope that you'll help Claire with her mission and make our world a kinder, more connected place, one act at a time.
Hi, I'm Claire Bloom. In 2011, I started End 68 Hours of Hunger in an effort to overcome childhood hunger right here in America. There are more than 16 million children in America who are hungry between the free lunch they get in school on Friday and the free breakfast they get in school on Monday. And what we know is that if we feed these children on the weekend, they can achieve 50% higher reading scores, 30% higher math scores, and are twice as likely to successfully complete the third grade, which is a primary indicator of high school graduation. To find out more, I'd love for you to be in contact with me. We have a website at www.end68hoursofhunger.org, or you can email me directly at end68hoursofhunger@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Kind Voice Radio.
And welcome back to Kind Voice Radio. You know, Claire was at a book club in Dover, New Hampshire, where she lives, and she found out there were hungry children in her community and wanted to do something about it. She's a retired Navy officer, so she started a program to feed those children that spread to 40 cities around the country and is still growing. And she doesn't take a dime for it, and neither do any of the volunteers. So it's kind of neat to identify a need in your community and start there. And Kari, welcome back to the program.
All right, thank you.
Good deal. And you saw a need too. And as a business person, initially you didn't get such great feedback from your vision. Can you talk about the persistence it takes to make a vision become a reality?
Yeah, for sure. And I go do a lot of school visits and talk to the kids about this, just the process. And they often ask, is it hard? And I, take a pause and say, it is. It's actually it's hard every day. And I joke that being an entrepreneur is a lot like being a mom, where you don't get a lot of feedback. If you do, it's usually negative. And you have to kind of keep going with some love in your heart for what you're doing. But yeah, when like I was saying, I first had this thinking it would be for other parents, and I had to really think, is this, is what's true about this idea? Is there something here? And I did a lot of testing with kids, so a lot of user testing. I come from a background of strategy and market research and marketing, and had done some work with the Stanford D School, the design school. And a lot of that work is about how you build empathy with your users and really start with the user need rather than starting with a great business idea or start with a great technology, really starting with the user need and then letting the business and the tech come together, or the product come together based on that user need. And so even now I keep going back to talking with kids and seeing where the user need is, and still see this need where kids need help finding books in our world where kids have a lot of activities they can choose from. How do we make sure books and reading are in that mix? And then the secret sauce really seems to be helping kids find the right book and then giving them the time and space to read. So our work is focused on the kids and really, helping them find those books. What are the different tools we can do? And then also supporting the parents and teachers in their lives, who are the ones to help them make that time and space and actually get them those books. So, our students are our core users, but we do look at the teachers and parents and how can we help them. So for parents, we try to send out information on just tips and strategies. How do you give your kid that time to read? For some families, it's helping them realize you have to treat it like soccer practice. So if you set aside time every week or a few times a week to go to soccer, you need to encourage that same time that you build into your calendar, your schedule, to encourage your kids to read, because they need that practice. And for teachers, especially elementary school teachers that have so many subjects they're thinking about, they can't keep up with all of the latest new books coming out and books kids are excited about. So we want to be a resource and a tool for those teachers to say, here are the new books coming out that are exciting for kids, or here's what other kids around the country are really excited about, and giving them those resources. But I think from a business perspective, it is constant iteration. It's kind of constantly seeing, okay, what works, and kind of keeping core to the true, we're here to help kids read more and be excited about reading, and what are the features and what are the elements and the communication we need to do to keep that, to really get that message out there. So it's definitely been an iteration, a lot of ups and downs, and figuring how to make it a sustainable business is a constant challenge. And I think that's true for a lot of educational products, or kind of ed tech, as the sector is often called, finding ways to make sure these businesses are sustainable.
And I love that answer. There's so many brilliant things you said in there about iterations and finding out what is true. Now, I'm looking at the Racing in the Rain page, and one of the cool things that jump out at me is you have the buy icon, but you also have a borrow icon. Can you talk about that a little bit, the philosophy behind that?
Yeah, I mean, we and this is, again, something we're iterating on and trying to develop further. But the borrow button actually links to the open library group. You can actually see, is that book available in my local public library? And the way it should work is that it knows from the IP address on your computer what community you're in. And so then you can see if that book is at your library. And really the idea there was the number one feedback I got from kids when I first started going around to classrooms and showing them Bookopolis, you could feel the tangible excitement in the room, about buzzing about books, and that was what we wanted. But they wanted to read the book right now, which I understood. That was my goal too. I want you to read it right now. But we're not an e-reading book platform, and I will joke to the kids that, yeah, if you brought your credit card, you can read it because we are connected into Amazon. But that books cost money, and that it's funny. I think kids in particular, there is so much free stuff out there for them that even the concept that they would have to pay for, that was a big concept for them. So the borrow button was sort of our shortcut to be, how could we get something to help them get that book a little quicker and go to the library. We'd love to work on something where we could actually connect straight to their classroom library so that they could read the ebook right away. So we're working on some of those pieces. We did add another page that's under the book extras on the heading, called Read It Now. And this was our other answer to sort of the short term, where every month or so we change books. We put up 3 books by age group, and they link to a free sample or sometimes a whole book that kids can read right now. Because that is what we're trying to do. We are trying to get kids to read right now. And I joke with the kids a lot that I talk to that my goal is not for you to spend hours on Bookopolis. I don't want you on any device or any screen for hours. I want you to use this as a tool to go find the books you're psyched about and go read. Go outside and go read, or go sit in a park, or snuggle up in a bed. And, that's really what I want you to do, not spend hours on Bookopolis or any site.
But this is such a colorful and beautiful site, and I mean the borrow button says to me you're doing it for a good reason and a pure reason. Now, can you talk about the journey? You put up a website initially. When was that, and how have the trends been as far as books sold? How many viewers you've had on the site?
Yeah, so we started, I guess, about 2.5 years ago. So this is our second full school year out. So again, I had started it spring a couple years ago, and that's where, I'd sent it out to parents, and it didn't really get the pickup, and I started talking to teachers and realizing, okay, there's actually something more powerful here to use it, to really use teachers as a way to build our user base, and how can we have value to teachers and then hook the parents in too. So, I like to say, how can we be the Scholastic 2.0? If you remember the kind of old school Scholastic paper magazine. I don't know if you got that as a kid.
I think I do remember. It was long ago.
Yeah, well, it kind of looks the same today.
Wow.
Kids get the same thing, and when I've been in classrooms, when they get their Scholastic, and the kids make the point, it would be great if I could actually click in and see what my friends say about this book, or see some reviews, because on a flat, static page, you don't get any sense of, do other kids love this? Is this a popular book? And, to have a little bit of added value to that. So, again, we actually, the work, we want to do is going back to the parents via the schools to help the parents get books for the kids. But so we spent that first spring and summer really understanding, okay, then what is the need for classrooms? How can we build this out? And then built out new features. And I've had a great team. My brother-in-law is an amazing designer, and for a very friendly friends and family rate, designed the whole site. I would draw things out in PowerPoint in very non-artistic way, and he would turn it into something beautiful. So I'm so grateful for all the work that he did to make that. And then I had another friend who was a developer that helped design the initial site, and my husband is a tech genius, and so he is really the architect behind the technology of it. And so it's been a very grassroots coming together to design the site. And then we started going out to schools, and I haven't spent anything on marketing per se. It's all been grassroots, word of mouth. I find a lot of teachers on Twitter and Pinterest and Facebook looking for book ideas, looking for new tools to help them with their language arts goals in their classroom, and then they tell each other. So that's really how we were able to grow. In the first couple of years, we were recognized by the American Library Association of school libraries, and they have a Best Teaching and Learning Website Awards they give out every year. So we were selected for that in 2015 and selected as a Cool Tools from EdTech Digest. And so those awards helped us grow. And so now we have almost 250,000 users on there, with about 14,000 teachers who use it. I should say 14,000 teachers and parents, so probably 8,000, 9,000 of those are teachers. And then we also get some parents come on, either homeschool communities, or just parents can also be connected to their kids' Bookopolis accounts to see their information. And so every day we have, maybe 5,000 or 6,000 kids that go on the site, and about 1,500 reviews every day. So it's fun to see how it's grown, and really in a very organic, grassroots kind of way.
Now, with 1,500 reviews, how do you monitor all of those?
Yeah, that's what I do from about 10 p.m. to midnight every night is
wow. So
is
that's
read
what
those
you
reviews.
Do. Wow.
I am doing that right now. That's something I've looked at. Could I have someone else do that piece of it? So we'll see as the site grows and things grow. I might have to give up that one duty, but I also like seeing what the kids write and being able to approve those every day.
I guess it keeps your finger on the pulse of what's going on as far as the interaction with the site.
It does, for sure. And I also run after-school book clubs in my community for a very similar reason. I mean, I love what Bookopolis can do for a lot of kids, but there's also a lot of power of in-person book clubs and actually kids sitting in a room face-to-face and discussing a book that they've read and diving deeper into it. And that helps me keep a pulse on, how are kids thinking about books and talking about books and, books we read as adults. And most of the reviews out there, all the school library journal and book lists, there's all these great resources of adults reviewing kids' books. But sometimes kids have very different opinions about them, and a book that gets starred reviews from adults isn't always the one that gets them actually excited to read. So I like hearing firsthand from the kids what they like or don't like about the books they read.
So you're really living and enjoying this mission, which is really coming through, and that's great. And in a world without boundaries, where would you like to see Bookopolis go?
Yeah, I mean, we would love to be the go-to place that every kid and parent and teacher go when they're trying to find what they want to read and when they want to share what they're excited about they read. So that would be our goal, to really be that place that people turn to. Kind of like when I'm looking for a restaurant in a new community, I always go to Yelp. I'd love Bookopolis to be the first thing that comes to mind for kids as well as their teachers and parents, of the place to find the book they want to read and where they want to share about it.
How cool. It sounds like you're really on the road to getting there. We need to pause for a good news report, so we'll be right back after this.
Hi everyone, this is Tasha Rollins with your Good News Report of the Week. This week's story is really cool. It comes from Woodbridge, Virginia, where a 29-year-old woman named Lauren Puryear is taking a new craze called extreme couponing to a new level. She's using her couponing skills to buy groceries cheap and a lot of times for free so that she can help feed the homeless. The process is not as easy as you may think, though. It involves rounding up numerous copies of the Sunday circular coupons, finding coupons online, and enlisting friends and family to scour for deals as well. Then once the coupons are located and cut and matched up to the stores, she then hits the stores to shop. Once all the food is stockpiled, she turns them into tasty, healthy meals for the local homeless population. And she's not just making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches either. She creates dishes like spaghetti and meatballs, baked chicken with rice, or cold-cut sandwiches. Once she has all the food compiled, she sets up tables and serves the dishes right on the street to any unsheltered people in need of food, serving about 100 to 500 people at a time. So far, she's fed over 5,000 people on a shoestring budget through extreme couponing. Although Lauren works a full-time job, she makes feeding the homeless a priority in her life. Due to the demand, she has decided to enlist help from her friends and family as well, and has decided to start her own organization called For the Love of Others. The organization helps people in need through various community outreach events. So I know you're wondering, where did she get this idea? Well, it all started a few years back after the passing of her grandmother. Her grandmother would stop and talk to homeless people all the time to find out if they were okay, and Lauren says, I felt it was my obligation to keep her legacy going. And Lauren says that she hopes to feed 30,000 people by her 30th birthday on September 14, 2017. According to Lauren, the most common response she hears from the diners is, thank you. This is the first meal we've had in a couple of days. The reason I wanted to share this story with you is because it's a story of giving and a story of compassion. Many of us take eating food every day for granted, and some of us waste food, not realizing that there are people that don't eat for days at a time because they can't afford food. I hope this story has inspired you to get involved in either donating to Lauren's organization to help her continue to feed people, or to even donate food to your local food bank, or better yet, start your own movement to help feed the hungry. If you would like to see some pictures of Lauren and her helpers, please feel free to visit our blog at www.akindvoice.org/each-one-reach-one. And if you would like to donate to Lauren's organization and learn more about the work she is doing, please visit the For the Love of Others page on Facebook. I hope this story has not only inspired you, but moves you to take action to help those in need around you. I leave you with a quote of the week from Mother Teresa. If you can't feed 100 people, then just feed one. Thank you all for listening to this report, and I hope that it has inspired and uplifted you today. Have a wonderful rest of the week, everyone.
Kind Voice Radio.
And welcome back to Kind Voice Radio. I'm your host, David Levins. We're here with Kari Riedel of Bookopolis. Kari, welcome back to the program.
Thanks. I love hearing those good reports, too. Very inspiring.
Yeah, I love the good news as well. And Tasha was talking about the interconnectivity of getting it from her grandmother and building out from there. Are there any quotes, and she ended with a quote from Mother Teresa, are there any quotes that inspire you?
I don't know if there's a quote in particular, but I've always been inspired by seeing people who go out in their community and have an impact, and really knowing that there is an impact just by one action. Part of my previous life had been running a social enterprise bakery that provided jobs for people who were formerly homeless and out of jail. Usually had either substance abuse problems or had spent time incarcerated, and it was difficult to find a job. And I found so much inspiration from seeing these individuals who, had made a bad choice at some point in their lives, had gotten them into a situation, and seeing the willpower and commitment and their ability to get themselves on a different track. And I was inspired every day by those individuals, and then seeing the positive impact they had on their communities by having a job and turning their lives around, and what they were able to do for their families. And I think about that work and those individuals all the time, and the impact that one person can have on a community and the good things that they're doing. And so anything that I can do to help be that person or to inspire someone else, that brings me the joy I need in my day.
It's such a beautiful thing to do. And you spoke about working for a social enterprise, and I believe Bookopolis is also a social enterprise. Can you tell the people what a social enterprise is?
Yeah, so a social enterprise can be a business that has a social purpose. So it can be structured as a for-profit or a nonprofit. So Bookopolis is structured as a for-profit organization. The bakery that I used to work at had been a nonprofit, so social enterprises can have different structures in that way. But at the heart of it, you're trying to balance a dual mission. So a business mission in that you want to be profitable or break even, and then a social mission. And so for us, the social mission is getting every kid reading. And so that is definitely something that we balance, is how do you have both a social mission and a profitability mission.
Now, it's an interesting balance, but it's a great thing you guys are doing. Now, you also have an Indiegogo campaign. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so part of our work, again, we're in classrooms around the country, and classrooms that are really well funded and classrooms where they're struggling to just have a few books in their classroom for kids to read. And one of the things that I see in talking with teachers is, even teachers in a more well-funded school, there's just not a lot of extra resources for extra tools or extra resources that help them do the job they want to do. So something like Bookopolis, which is, I'd say, a nice to have in their classroom. It's not core, it's not a textbook, but it is a way that can build community. Most teachers don't have the resources to pay for an extra tool like this. And so we've been working on how do we stay afloat, though. So as a business, again, we're a for-profit, not a nonprofit, so we need revenue, obviously, to exist and pay for the servers and pay for the developers on the website and that type of thing. And so we get some advertising from publishers who will actually pay to have their books have ads or things that are in a kid-friendly and child-safe way. But that's not enough to cover. So we reached out to teachers to see about paying for the site. And again, it's something that's really difficult for teachers to have the budget. So we came up with the idea of having an Indiegogo campaign as a way to help fund classrooms. So for $25, which would be what it would cost a teacher for a year per class, people can fund the classroom and help keep Bookopolis as a free resource that teachers don't have to think or stress about, should I keep this, should I not, do I need to pay for it, where am I going to get the money for it, do I have to put it on my personal credit card, which is what teachers do for a lot of things. The average is somewhere between $400 and $500 a year that teachers spend out of their own pocket on things for their classrooms. And we wanted to be able to keep it free. So our Indiegogo campaign is really a call for either people who believe in reading, have kids who are using Bookopolis, or their students could benefit from it, and they might have the resources to help fund another classroom, to keep it free for all kids.
How cool. And there's a link, if you're listening to the online version, there's a link to the Indiegogo campaign right in the show description, as well as the Bookopolis website and a couple of example books that we discussed. Now, do you guys have other partners besides schools and parents and teachers? Do you work with authors or publishers?
Yeah, so we do work with authors and publishers to share their books, and we try to have, I know a lot of kids love to connect directly with authors, so we're working with more authors to actually have interviews and information from authors up there. That's partly what kids feel more connected to books if they kind of see the whole picture of how did the writing process start, and being inspired by authors who've experienced tons of rejection and failure is an inspiration for kids for sure. So we try to have more resources out there from publishers and authors. And again, that is one of our ways that we're able to keep the site funded is working with publishers and authors.
Now getting back to the site, I'm looking under new book ideas. Can you talk about what's under new book ideas?
Yeah, so we have a lot. Yeah, new book ideas are lots of different ways for kids to discover books that are curated. So there's 30,000 new kids' books that come out every year.
Wow.
So like I said at the beginning that, there's this conflicting research where kids say, I would read more if I could find more books I like, but I mostly like the books I pick myself or my friends recommend. So we wanted to do some curation of book lists, but in a way, again, that was kid-centered and kid-friendly. So there's a lot of resources out there for parents and teachers to find books at different levels. And reading and leveling as a whole, that could be a whole topic in itself. But there's some different mainstream ways that publishers and teachers think about leveling books. But kids often don't think in what is my Fontes and Pinnell level or what is my Lexile level. They often say, like, I read a chapter book or I read thick books or really thick books. And so we wanted to design some curated book lists that were in kid speak. So one of those is called Book Quest. So it's the first thing you see under new book ideas called Book Quest. And we interviewed hundreds of kids and really designed a tool for them to go down a path and, again, make finding a book fun. So they get to pick. They can pick what grade they're in. And then, again, we ask them what level do they read. So instead of saying, I'm a 720 Lexile, kids would probably say, I read a thick book. So they can pick thick book. And then they talk about type of book. So whether it's a graphic novel, that's more like a comic book, or a regular book with words, they can choose that. And then kids usually divide by, I want a fiction or a nonfiction. And let's say they pick fiction, we found that kids separate into either I want a magical book or a non-magical. So again, these aren't the ways that you see most book lists curated for adults. They're by I want historical fiction, or it's a much more like what you would see in a bookstore. But again, those aren't designed for kids. And so this is a tool, where kids can pick, I want a magical book, you want magical animals, or a fairy tale, or spy, or superpower. And then we give some book recommendation ideas based on that. And then we also have several curated lists. Again, we're trying to reach, different kids reach, different things reach different kids. And so then there's a list of reader picks that are recommended by different Bookopolis readers, and they can pick by genre. So they can pick, I want an adventure book or a realistic fiction, and by a general grade grouping. So, kid who reads kind of on a 3rd to 6th grade level, which, could be a younger kid, could be an older kid. And then we have several book lists of award winners and things that readers also liked. So one of the most popular books in Bookopolis is a book called Wonder, which is an amazing story that really builds empathy for about I don't know if you've read this book, David, but it's an empathy book about a boy with a disfigured face that goes to mainstream school for the first time and the experiences he has. And so we have, if you like Wonder, here are 8 other books you might like. Or if you loved Harry Potter, here are 8 other books you might like. So we have a lot of book lists like that, which, again, are all intended to just help kids find something they're excited to read. I talk to my book club kids and school when I do school visits, I talk a lot about abandoning books, and that I might disagree with their teachers, but it's okay to abandon a book. Again, there's 30,000 new books every year and hundreds of thousands of books that are available out there. And so if you don't like what you're reading, put it down. Don't waste your time and go find something else that actually gets you excited about the world. And I love what you were saying at the beginning with kind voice and kind voices in books, because that's really the power of books, is that they can teach us about the world. There's a big campaign going around of we need diverse books, with the idea of books need to be both windows and mirrors for our kids.
I like that.
And ourselves too. But, books need to be a mirror. Every kid should see themselves in a book. And so the need for books with more diverse characters, because this, again, could be a whole other topic, but, most books are written by white people in our country, and yet that's not what our country looks like. So needing more diverse voices in books so kids can have a mirror to see themselves, but they also need windows. They also need books of people not like them, and that does build empathy and an understanding of different people's experiences. So, kind of the power that books have to help us make sense of ourselves and the emotions we're going through as elementary and middle school kids, but also to realize that there's a world beyond, maybe the community or the city that they live in, and their role in participating in that world. So I don't know how I got there, but that's really, to me, the power. The power of reading is that.
It's such a true idea. And as you were going through Book Quest, it's just a fun menu, a fun progression to get to the book you want. So I think you got a great idea, but the way you execute it and making a fun, interactive journey for kids is really what's bringing it to life.
Yeah, that is the goal, definitely, to have them just get excited about it. And I think there's a deeper goal there about, as we were just saying, just the power of what reading does for kids and how it can really save lives and change their lives, either giving them a way out of a bad situation they're in, or just exposing them to have a deeper sense of empathy for the world that we live in. But things do need to be fun because they're kids, and so we can't just shove the vegetables down them. We have to make sure it's wrapped up in a way that's approachable and exciting and honors their their voice, and honoring that they do have an opinion about what they read, and they should be able to share that with others.
And you really do it beautifully. We need to pause for a final break, and we'll be right back after this.
This is NASCAR driver Kurt Busch, and I am proud to support our nation's veterans. Do you know you can get a faster decision on your disability compensation claims by filing an electronic fully developed claim, or eClaim, on eBenefits? Take it from a guy who lives his life in the fast lane. Faster is better. Visit ebenefits.va.gov today to learn more.
There's nothing wrong with reaching out when you need. I'll be there for you, and maybe you can be for me. With a kind voice, a few kind words, an open ear for when you need to be heard, a warm heart. We can make that choice to be a kind voice.
Hi, I'm Dominic Damaski, and I'd like to thank you for listening to A Kind Voice Radio. This is a place where we have conversations with an eclectic group of people who are using their kind voices to help make our world a kinder, more connected place. If you'd like to add your kind voice to the conversation, we are currently looking for new program hosts, producers, and bloggers. For more information, please check out the Using Your Kind Voice tab on our website, akindvoice.org. If you or someone you know happen to be creating a good story, we'd love to have you on our program. Please go to the radio menu at akindvoice.org and click on the show that best connects with your story. Then scroll down and click the guest information link. Thanks again for listening. And remember, please use your kind voice to make a difference and make somebody happy today.
Kind Voice Radio.
And welcome back to Kind Voice Radio. I'm your host, David Levins. We're here with Kari Riedel talking about Bookopolis. Kari, welcome back to the program.
Hi, thanks.
Good. Yeah, it's so interesting what you've been saying. So if I'm a teacher listening to this and I want to get my classroom engaged with Bookopolis, what would I do?
Yeah, so just go to bookopolis.com. There's a button that says, Hey Teachers, want more info? If you want to learn a little bit more, and you can see more specifically, what are some of the ways that you can use this in your classroom. There's a short video you can watch or see some testimonials, or just click the sign up button. And again, it's all free. That's part of our goal, part of the Indiegogo campaign, as well as the service we want to offer to teachers. And if you go to Sign Up Teachers, we have some integrations with tools that teachers use. One of teachers' hardest problems with ed tech and using new technology is always the sign-up process and creating 30 different usernames for their students. And so we actually have designed integrations with Google Classroom and Edmodo and Clever, which are some of the most widely used learning management systems. And so with one click, you can sign up for a teacher account, and it'll automatically create accounts, or you can enter in and type in accounts for your students. So we tried to make that as simple as possible. And I tell both the kids and the teachers there's a big orange feedback button at the bottom of every page, and you can send a message to me right away as the mayor of Bookopolis if you have any questions. And so I often get, as you might be able to tell, I work a lot on this, and so I often will be answering emails at 6 in the morning, and teachers are always really happy when I respond right away before the school day begins with any questions they might have. So it's pretty easy to sign up, and you can always feedback a message to the mayor, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
It's great how you keep it fun. You were saying how books are curated. Can you speak in more detail on how you curate the books?
Yeah, so it comes from a combination of, we work with, I have an advisory board that has teachers and librarians and people who work at independent bookstores on there. So they help me come up with some of the lists. Like for BookQuest, we worked with a team that curated those book lists. And then we also look at the reviews that are coming in every day from Bookopolis readers and want to be able to share those with other kids. So that's how all those lists get compiled. And then, like I said, we do work with publishers. I've been fortunate enough to, we're still small enough that every time we share a book that is advertising from publishers, I've read the book and make sure it's something I'm excited about, or have my book club read it and make sure it's something that other kids approve of. And so some of the books that are on the homepage as selected are, might be ones that we're supporting from as an advertising from publishers, but we've read them all. Our team has read them all. Our kids have read them, and they're excited to share them with other kids.
Oh, that's so impressive that it's so well thought out. Do you see any kind of physical presence, like a brick and mortar presence, or being part of a theme park like a Disneyland?
I don't know about a theme park, but I'd love to be more integrated with local bookstores. How else can we have Bookopolis book clubs everywhere? That's another vision I have, to expand not just the site but the in-person book clubs that I've been running and now have a few other people who are working on. Again, I think there's such power to books as a source of community, not just for kids to talk about books and get excited to read, but really the empathy and the learning about yourself and the learning about the world that really comes through books. And how can we, as an online website presence, but also in person, how can we encourage that and facilitate that? So that's where I would love to see it grow, is really have more book clubs and more things around the world.
Wow. Hey, it's such a beautiful mission. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you'd like to share with the audience?
I think just the importance of talking about books. So I'd imagine a program like this is probably heard more by the teachers and the parents and the kids. But I'd encourage parents to talk to their kids about what they're reading. I think there's something, a lot of parents spend time reading with their kids when they're young, and then their kids are able to read, and so it's sort of nice. I remember that feeling as a parent when my kids first were able to read to themselves, like, that was a little break in the evening for once. But that importance of continuing to read with your kids and to ask them about what they're reading, even read it with them, read it to them, and really dive deeper and use that as a conversation and a way of connecting with your kids and your family. I've just really seen the power of that with my own kids as well as with book clubs. And then for teachers, just to encourage kids to read things that inspire their love of reading, not just because it's their right level or because it's their book club book we're going to read to the whole class and we've read this a million times, but really helping kids connect to books that are going to help them have a deeper sense of themselves and the world, and then be excited to want to read and identify themselves as a reader. You really see that power of kids. Obviously, we all know reading is good. There is research that shows kids who love reading, not only the academic and the kind of testing that they do well on, but that have deeper emotional intelligence and have more success in job prospects because they have this foundation and understanding of literature. And so, just encouraging adults to engage with the kids in their lives about books in new and different ways would be my one request for the listeners out there.
It's such an important thing to do, and what you're creating is so inspirational. So thanks for taking some time to share this beautiful thing you're doing.
Oh, well, thank you. It was great to talk with you, and I'm so happy to know about A Kind Voice and can't wait to hear more kind voices on your show. Excellent.
I appreciate you. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you. You too.
And that was Kari Riedel from Bookopolis. And you should check out this website. It's very fun, and there's just a lot going on there. And there is so many kind voices in books. A kind voice was started in part because of a book called Travels with Charlie by John Steinbeck, where John Steinbeck traveled across America in search of what was happening in 1960 America. And one of the stops he made was in New Orleans at the time when schools were first being integrated, and Ruby Bridges was attending, I believe, William Franz Elementary School. And he went to the demonstration and saw people booing Ruby Bridges and saying very, very horrible things. And he was taken aback and nauseated by it, but he said he got it. There's always people doing horrible things in the world. But he asked where were the others? Where were all the kind voices he knew in New Orleans? And he concluded he didn't know where they were. Maybe they felt as helpless as he felt, but the images of that demonstration were broadcast all over the world, unchallenged by the other things he knows are there. And sometimes listening to news on television, I feel it's unchallenged. And having these kind voices on, like Kari Riedel of Bookopolis and David Rowan, is our way of challenging the world by the other things we know are there. There are many kind voices doing positive things. So thank you for taking your time to listen to this program. I'd like to thank our producer, Yolanda Riley. And we're going to close with Joshua Rich singing The Tapestry of Love and Sound, about a garden where people all work together and share their kind voices. This is David Levins, hoping you go out and use your kind voice to make a difference in somebody's life.
Here in our garden, we gather to share all that's inside of us, how much we care, find strengths in our differences, and reach common ground, celebrate our unity in a tapestry of loving sound. So make a kind choice with your kind voice, and united it will find our kind voices inside, which sing out in unity, creating community and bringing us together as one. Some of us make movies, some of us sing songs, some find forgiveness for a choice that was wrong. Some of us feed children, some help people in need, and all of us in our own way are planting a loving seed. When we make a kind choice with our kind voice, and united we find our kind voices inside, which sing out in unity, creating community and bringing us together as one. And each moment brings on changes, and each change helps us to see that we're all of us a part of our sweet humanity. And we each bring something special as we cultivate our soul, while the kindness deep within us makes us whole. Kind choice with your kind voice, and united we'll find our kind voices inside, which sing out in unity,